In the same way that coral reefs are built by individual corals whom are made up by multiple polyps, great change is brought by individual people engaging in a multitude of actions. I presented 96 coral reef scientists, practitioners, and enthusiasts with a list of 32 actions that help preserve coral reefs. They responded whether this action strongly applies, mostly applies, or does not apply to their life, and whether or not they were planning to engage in this action in the future. The respondents were engaged on average in 19 different actions, with the most engaged person taking action in 30 different ways. Like corals, most of our participants indicated that they consume less than others and produce less waste than others as well.
I buy almost all my clothes secondhand. Why? For different reasons. Buying used means we give the garment a second life. Less end up discarded in landfills. It saves on raw materials that would have been used to make a new one. It saves on energy that would have been used not only in production but also for transport. And it also saves in packaging. Did you know that textile production emits more than international flights and maritime shipping combined? Textile production is one of the most polluting industries, producing 1.2 billion tons of CO2 equivalent per year. Today we're buying 60% more clothes than we did 15 years ago. We wear the clothes less and dispose of them sooner, which translates in higher manufacturing emission. This is why I buy most of my clothes second-hand. And maybe buying second-hand clothes is not your thing, and that's okay. You can buy clothing from earth-conscious companies and pledge to keep them as long as possible.
Small actions can lead to positive, long-lasting, sustained change. It's time to stop purchasing paper products that come wrapped in plastic. And it's time to consider an alternative that is easier on your budget and also on the environment. A simple change you can make at your organization or institution is to switch from paper napkins to cloth napkins. After having napkins made, you can create a napkin tree where every person at your institution has access to their very own napkin. More than ever, it's important to practice good hygiene. So at the end of every meal, be sure that every person removes their napkin and replaces it with a new one. Implementing these small changes together is one step forward in protecting our oceans and coastlines.
A lot of us have moved to a more plant-based diet, similar to corals getting part of their energy from zooxanthellae. Some of us eat completely plant-based or vegan, representing the corals at the top of the reef that profit from plenty of sunlight.
Look, if we don't reduce the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere, then the present generation of scientists are going to be the last ones ever to be able to work on coral reefs. It's as simple as that. If we want to reduce our personal footprint, then the simplest thing we can do is to stop eating meat. We all want someone else to do something else, somewhere else, and that's not enough.
Hi, I'm Abby, and I chose to go vegan 4 years ago. Being vegan has taught me to consider where my food comes from and how to use my power as a consumer to reduce my carbon footprint.
Hi, my name is Desiree Cruz. I work for the National Parks on Bonaire's Tinapa organization, and I came to my own conclusion that to protect the coral reefs better, I will stop consume animal products. So I've been doing this for many years now, and that is my way to conserve, my way of protecting our coral reefs in the world, and that is my input So happy Coral Week, and I hope you have a great input also to protect the coral reefs on the planet.
My name is Nathan Cook from Reef Ecologic in Townsville, Australia. We recently ran a reef leadership workshop where we taught participants how to survey coral reefs but also empower them to make behavioural changes in their own life. And one of the things we did was ran the event as the 6-day event as a vegetarian catered event. And one of the pleasing outcomes at the end of the workshop was that almost 50% of participants pledged or made a commitment to reduce their meat consumption going forward. A fantastic outcome.
When we do consume fish, most of us choose sustainable harvested fish, and some of us stopped eating fish at all.
Hi, my name is Aldo Turco and I'm a fish ecology based in Australia. The way I contribute to the marine environment in my everyday life is by consuming almost exclusively seafood and fish that I personally catch, and by catching only what I can eat.
When corals face heat stress, they bleach and lose their energy source, the zooxanthellae. This adaptation enables them to switch to other strains of zooxanthellae that are adapted to warmer waters. Similarly, some of us responded to global warming by switching to renewables when making a new purchase, whether it is a car, a heating system, or getting solar panels for electricity.
I've been asked to outline how and why we installed solar panels. We had thought about it, but then we went to a seminar at the middle school where the kids were advocating putting solar panels on the school roof, and we just decided that it was time to do it. So in order to decide how much to generate, the first thing to do is look at your electric bill and find out what's legal. And then the second thing is calculate how many panels are necessary to produce the amount of power you want. Well, once we decided where to put it, then I built the frame, and then a contractor came, Shako Solar, and installed the panels and the wires and hooked it up to the house. There have been many months when we have not used any power from the grid. When the air conditioning is on, we use power from the grid. And it's hard to estimate exactly how long it will take to pay it off, but it's certainly a little bit more than a decade.
Like these large corals, which are found on some reefs, we can have a huge positive impact when we start working on practical solutions.
At a certain point in my life, I realized that doing science in a specialized field is not enough to contribute to a sustainable future. You really need to push science into actions where it is most needed, from your lifestyles to your community. This can be achieved by starting projects at home, in your neighborhood, at your workplace, in schools, as well as collaborating with institutions. Providing a scientific background to these projects helps developing sound and informed initiatives, increasing the chance to make them meaningful and successful.
E-concrete provides a constructive concrete solution for enhancing the life on coastal infrastructure like breakwaters, seawalls, and pier piles. The technology is based on 3 elements that work in synergy to enhance life: the concrete composition, the surface texture, and the 3-dimensional design. Together, they allow for a better ecosystem to develop on the infrastructure without compromising any of the strength or workability of the structures.
Coming from the academy, it was very important for us to take the data and the information that the academy is providing and made sure that it can be implemented easily into the existing technology.
One of the main issues that made us develop e-concrete is basically the combination of human development along the coastline and the deterioration of coastal ecosystems like coral reefs and oyster beds. I think that this combination of global climate change, bringing sea level rise and increased storminess, with increase in urban population along the coastlines, creates a huge stress on those coastal environments. We designed a solution that will allow for sustainable development of coastal infrastructure in a way that actually enhances marine life instead of deteriorating it.
It is time to rethink the way that we protect our shorelines and make sure that any infrastructure that we are getting into the water provide 3 basic aspects. One is shoreline protection, the The second is promoting biology and providing ecosystem services. And the third one is addressing community.
Corals cannot influence many of the environmental factors that impact them. In the same way, we cannot fix all the problems that the coral reefs have ourselves. On the coral reef, parrotfish are helping the corals out. They make it possible for small corals to settle and for larger corals to thrive. We also need parrotfish in our life, and to get them, most of us are voting for green politicians. However, it is also important that we are going to protests and strikes and engage in civil disobedience from time to time. Unlike voting where we have to reach a majority, already 3.5% of the population engaging in peaceful civil disobedience leads to political change. A mass protest is therefore very much like a mass coral spawning event, very exciting and effective.
Hello, my name is Eleanor Nadir and I'm a PhD student in Tel Aviv University in the Benayal Lab. I participate in climate activism in several groups, including Students for Climate and Extinction Rebellion Israel. We feel that in the last year or so that we've been active, there's been a significant shift in public perception of the climate crisis. This is partly due to increased media coverage, largely due to the global movement, youth movement, and so on. And this has led to increased public pressure on the government that has actually led to some positive changes in the country. For instance, in Israel, the Environmental Protection Ministry has started the production of the Green New Deal, and the Energy Ministry has increased the renewable energy target for 2030 from 17% to 30%. Though these are still very, very small changes in a country that plans to rely largely on natural gas for its energy production, we feel that public pressure does work, and as the climate movement grows, it becomes more and more apparent that the climate is moving to the forefront of the conversation. So we hope that wherever you are, you can join or start a local group and help us try and avert the climate crisis. Thank you.
One aspect where we act very differently from corals is travel. Corals hardly ever travel in their life, actually only when they're very little, as larvae, while we travel around a lot, for conferences, for work, and for pleasure.
Hi, I'm Dr. Chelsea Council. For many years now, I've been committed to living a low-emission lifestyle through choices including consuming a primarily plant-based diet, using my bike to commute, line drying my laundry, and supporting local businesses. Within the last few years, I realized that air travel for work and pleasure was one of the main ways I was still contributing a large amount of CO2 emissions. So I committed to flying less. Since I live in Hawaii, for me to attend any research conference that is not being held in Hawaii requires at least a 6-hour flight. As an early career scientist, I still wanted to be able to participate in and contribute to research conferences without having to emit CO2 through air travel. This is part of where Global Coral Reef Week comes from. The idea that we as coral reef scientists and enthusiasts can signal to the world that we are willing to change our business as usual approach to research conferences in order to decrease our CO2 emissions, to signal to the world that we think it is worth it to redesign our professional strategies and personal lifestyles to combat the climate crisis and to save coral reefs.
Some corals stop reproducing as much as they used to due to the stressors they are facing, and some of us have decided to do the same and having fewer children. It is also important for us to support women's education and family planning to help others to make similar decisions, and to help indigenous groups, which are only 5% of our world population, to protect the 80% of global biodiversity they are protecting today. Corals emit chemical cues to communicate with each other and coordinate their actions. Similarly, one of the top actions done by coral scientists is to educate others. No matter how many polyps your coral has right now, add more to it and inspire others to do so as well. We need large changes to save our reefs, and each of your actions is important. I hope this video inspired you to take more action and to ask for change. And I want to thank everybody who contributed to it by sending in a clip.